Peter, I mean, we talked about what Egypt can do. Is there much that the U.S. actually can do here? I mean, obviously the U.S. gives a lot of aid, but it sounds like at this point the generals kind of don't even care whether that continues or not, that aid can be replaced by Saudi Arabia or somewhere else.
Right. At this point, it's hard to see how much the U.S. can do very much. I think the real question that historians will be looking at for many, many years is, would it have made a difference at the moment of the coup, when there was still a possibility of restoring Morsy or forcing the military not to go down this path, if the U.S. had then, at that point, said, we're cutting off aid, taken a really blunt, unequivocal stance, instead of what the Obama administration did, which was kind of trying to have it both ways, essentially saying, we're not going to cut off aid, we accept that Morsy probably won't come back, but still try to be restrained. Would that make a difference?
You used the word coup. The administration has not used
right,
that
they
word.
didn't want to use the word coup because it would have required cutting off aid. In retrospect, and obviously hindsight is always 20/20, in hindsight, they were too nuanced. They were trying to split the difference, and their message didn't get through. And I think that at that moment, perhaps, the U.S. could have stopped the military. We don't know, but it would have had a better chance than it does now.
Well, I mean, all along in all of this, how much impact do you think the U.S. really could have had? I mean, even in the overthrow of Mubarak, there were many people who criticized the Obama administration for not supporting Mubarak longer. I mean, Ivan, you and I were there. The sense on the street was it didn't matter what the U.S. was going to do. This events on the ground in Egypt are happening at a pace that is irregardless of what the United States is doing.
That's right. And what we haven't, you mentioned Saudi Arabia, but this is an instance where Egypt is such a powerful force in the Arab world and with its Arab allies. This is a place where actually our Arab allies can perhaps be more influential than we can. Look, we could have, I think if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. So this was a coup. We can debate why the administration didn't use it. I happen to agree with Peter. They didn't use it because of the consequences of that. But it was clearly a coup. The fact is, though, the problem with cutting off aid, you've got to play the chess game of moving the pieces down the board. If we removed ourselves and removed the aid, someone who has a different foreign policy agenda might have filled that gap. So Russia or Qatar or others with whom we don't have...
But look at Saudi Arabia. I mean, you talk about Saudi Arabia could have an impact. Saudi Arabia doesn't want a democratic Egypt, do they? I mean, they don't want that example of democracy in the Middle East.
Stability.
That's right.
Well, but Saudi Arabia is right. But I think what Fran was saying correctly is there ultimately will be no stability without the Islamists having the opportunity to express themselves politically. And because the U.S. was equivocal, and the Gulf states, Saudi Arabia and others, came down very strongly on behalf of the people, of the military leading this coup. And now we have the possibility of a Syria-like situation in which we've got different regional actors, Turkey on behalf of the Muslim Brotherhood, the Gulf states on the other, playing it out with Egypt as their battlefield like Syria has been.
Just very quickly, Peter, do you see this going to wider conflict? Do you see this, or at least erupting larger within Egypt?
Well, you don't have the same sectarian divisions exactly, although I think the question of the Copts is a very, very concerning one. But I do think you have the possibility of the most powerful country in the Middle East now being essentially an open battlefield in which you could imagine people starting to arm elements of the Muslim Brotherhood. They have supporters all over the Middle East, and that is a truly, truly frightening situation.
You see that as well?
Yeah, I think there's I think the Saudis want stability. They didn't want to see Morsi as a member of the Muslim Brotherhood in power. And so there are these regional actors who are playing through their own agendas, and I think that fuels a further conflict.